Okay, you have about a minute and a half left.
Just 1 minute. It's okay.
Okay, we're about to wrap it up. Can I get everyone's focus back up here? Okay, so raise your hand if you said you were a cell presentation. Okay, most. Or half and tell, half and half. You can be both. Okay, does anyone want to share how they are going to sell or tell within their presentation? How they want the audience to be involved in your cell presentation? That's okay. So I have an example. So asking questions and having the audience raise their hand is a small part of cell, but also having the activities and having the audience speak back to you and you're more of a facilitator when you're the presenters up front in a cell presentation. So you have a lot less control. So now I'm going to pass it on to Patrick, and he's going to talk about unifying your intent and your message.
Thanks, Haley. All right, so unify the message and the intent. Why? First of all, why? Well, it's important for the team, for the audience, and for the speaker to know why. And to know what the intent and what the message are trying to reach, what you're trying to portray to the audience. It's important that everybody's on the same page when they start this, so everybody can be working with the same information and same materials in the team, and they can all be working towards the same objectives with that material and information. The more that you unify your message and your intent, the more relatable you can make your message to the audience. So when it comes to how you do this, first of all, you have to be able to adapt and make modifications as you go. You have to be able to gauge the feedback, learn, be able to analyze, process, and then move forward with the better direction. The big thing, you have to make sure when you do make a modification or a change, you have to do it as a team, because we are a team and you are a team. If one of you strays off, your intent is gone because your message has radically changed. Once you have made the modifications, then you practice. You practice, you practice, you practice again, because have you ever been to a sports game when the team didn't practice? No, because they don't make it to that level. If you're in front of an audience, you're in front of a crowd, you should be prepared, you should be practiced. And then once you've practiced, once you have been able to get out in front of the crowd, you need to be able to gauge and get a measurable feedback of some sort to see if the crowd is picking up what you're putting down. Do you understand? You have to be able to get some feedback to know some people are paying attention. So that 8 seconds, you got to restart that 8 seconds over and over. Learning from our first group. So here's an example. Martin Luther King knew how to lead. He knew that to get a point across, there are multiple ways to do it, some more effective than others. He knew darkness could not drive out darkness, only love can do that. He knew hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. So, he knew he knew that fighting and being violent and going that route was never gonna unify people. His goal was to unify, unifying his message and his intent. he was able to go with the peaceful protests, with uplifting messages that were way more effective than the other leaders during the civil rights movement that were going the violent route and further dividing. He was trying to unify. So what he did laid the foundation for the civil rights movement that has progressed since the 52 years since he's died. He laid the foundation for that. Then he took it the step farther than most people do posting online. He practiced what he preached. He went out and he gave speeches. He went out, he led marches. He did the peaceful protests. He rallied people behind his ideas of unification. All right, so here's some tips for your presentation. From the get-go, make sure all your team members are present for the brainstorming. That way everybody's on the same page from the beginning. You got to start, making sure everybody knows what's happening, working towards the same objectives, the same goals from the get-go, from alpha to omega. Everybody has to understand the whole range of things. Also very important, you have to be able to give constructive criticism to your team. It's very beneficial to get criticism from somebody who benefits from you succeeding. It's more important for me to get criticism from any of them than from you, who you're not on my team. They benefit directly from me being better. So really value the constructive criticism that comes from your own team and from your own group. So that leads us to the last group activity. Everybody, if you could pull out the squiggly sheet. And we're going to do this pretty quick, but this really runs through our presentation. It runs through the various steps of 5 main takeaways. And since, it's my section, I'm being selfish, I want you to focus on the bottom section, the unifying your message and intent. Really think about your team and how you can draw together what you are presenting and what you want us to take away as the audience. And I'm going to give you 40 seconds.
And just remember, these are mostly handouts that you can take with you to work on outside of class.
Yes.
With your team in preparation for your presentation. Any questions? All right, time's up.
I can see y'all were busily writing great ideas. We're going to let y'all share them amongst your teams. We need to keep moving. So, our little summary, we touched on all these. First you have to start with your why. You have to lay the foundation. You have to get your bearings. Then you decide how. You decide how much participation you're going to need from the audience. You're gonna really need to facilitate that and dictate so you're in control. Oh, do you want to do that? Then you need to identify your starting point because every journey starts with a step. So you gotta take that first plunge. After that, it is vital that you create a plan so you're not lost in la la land. Doing research on one of you on kiddie pools, the other one on skyscrapers. It should be focused on what your intent is. Then you unify your message to make sure that you're getting your point across and that everything syncs up and that you're not confusing the audience with hoopla at the end. And then we are going to open it up for questions.
Michael?
Yes, I have a question for you, Michael. So people like to get paid when they go to work. Is that an example of intent or no?
So it actually is not, so that's more of a result, right? So an example of intent is you want your family, right, to be able to live a life of flexibility, right, to live at certain standards, right? So that's what drives, that's your intent of going to work.
Okay,
Money is just a way to facilitate that.
thank you.
I have a quick question. Patrick, how can we evaluate our success while mid-presentation?
Sure. So I don't know if you noticed, but while I was giving it, I literally turned and said, "Do you understand?" And I got a couple nods. That way, I was able to measure they were understanding what I was saying. If everybody looked at me blankly or was playing Angry Birds or whatever else, I would need to change it up. But I got actual feedback from people, and it helped me as a presenter. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all so much.